I got another review for all of y'all, and it's gonna be damn good. Yo, there is a lot of ish coming out right now. We got Returnal about to come out. Literally tomorrow is when I'm filming this, so I don't know exactly when I'm gonna release this review, but Returnal is coming out as of me filming this. But this review is not for Returnal, of course. It's gonna be for Nier Gestalt. I played the PS3 version of this game, but I didn't play it till years later. It was a long time after it was released, so I totally missed that train because that game I feel like came out, had to be damn near 10 years ago or something. Woo, I'm getting old, but that game came out. I finally played it probably about 3 or 4 years ago. PS4 was already out. They were already talking about PS5. Loved the hell out of the game. That's the one with that crucial ass old man. I know for anybody who played it, y'all remember him. And I love his voice actor and everything. He was my shit. But this one you play as like the brother. So, you know, it's still cool. It's literally the exact same game except you play as a brother to Yona, who's one of the main characters, as opposed to Yona's dad. That's the big difference. I ain't gonna lie, I was a little disappointed because of the whole nostalgia factor. I wanted to play as the crucial old man again because he talks a lot of shit, and the brother I knew was gonna be different, and accordingly it does feel different. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't quite feel as good to me. I don't know if that's nostalgia or if that's more objective. I don't know. Maybe y'all let me know. But regardless, you play as the brother, and it is what it is.
I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry.
The story starts out with you trying to save your sister Yona from these mysterious creatures called shades. The way that these things are animated are cool, but man, they look weird as fuck because it felt like they cheaped out or they got lazy or something with actually trying to animate it. Like maybe they like severely chopped the budget for the game. Like Square Enix published the game, so maybe they were like, hey, this isn't Final Fantasy, so let's chop that damn budget in half or something, because the shades just, they look cool looking, but you could tell that they didn't put like hardly any work into like the overall graphical fidelity of that. Now this is like a remaster of the PS3 version, so the characters look really good, like the main characters, but all the environments and all that stuff, honestly, it barely looks like it's been touched up. You know, maybe I need to go back and play the PS3 version, but I played it only a couple years ago, and I recall it already looking pretty good. So the fact that I'm not very impressed, to me, is more of a bad sign in terms of what they were able to accomplish with this remaster. It's definitely nothing close to like remake level of graphics or anything close to what they were capable of. The intro sequence still gives me chills to this day. I remember when I first played the PS3 version, I felt like I was about to love this game, and I did, because in the intro sequence, you're like in this abandoned city, it's like snowing, and you're playing, and there's all these shades show up, and Yona's there, and she's all coughing. oh, oh, I'm sick. Oh, I don't feel good, and all this stuff, and you're the dad, and you know, you start talking shit to the shades like, you damn monsters, get the hell away from me and my daughter, and all this stuff. And this one is just the same thing except for it's the brother, but the impact is still the same, and like the music that they play during this part is so ridiculously crucial. I feel like this intro sequence alone is kind of enough for you to know whether or not you're gonna love or hate the game, because to be honest with you, the combat doesn't really change throughout the game that much, so you pretty much get to a glimpse of pretty much all the moves, or almost all the moves that Nier can do. And well, in the game they let you name your character or whatever you want, but I think the official title for the character's name is Nier. So you get to pretty much use every move or at least all the magic, and then you also have all these weapons and stuff like that we'll get into later. But this whole sequence, you're just fighting this seemingly endless onslaught of shades that just keep coming and coming and coming, and you keep unlocking all these magic abilities. And this is all within like a maybe 3 or 4 minute segment of you doing battles. Really intense, and then things just kind of end abruptly. You fast forward through time. This is the very beginning of the game, and still as intriguing in this version as it was in the original PS3 version. Of course, you meet a lot of other characters along the way. There's the potty mouth Kaine. There's like the kind-hearted character Emil. There's the smart-ass book Grimoire Weiss, who's pretty much like one of the main characters. He's like always like by your side. It's a book that kind of just floats around you. Really interesting character. And there's a couple other like kind of side characters like the Devola and Popola characters, which we can talk about more, but there's not really much to them besides a couple spoilers, but we'll get to that sort of stuff. And I really love all the banter between these characters.
Hussies are only good for breaking things anyway.
Maybe I'll start with you.
The Hussie's foul language would reduce our precious cargo to dust. Spare me the goodbye, Hussie. I imagine it will take more than this to kill you.
Because there's just a lot of things that they have to say, and you can really feel the characters kind of develop their relationship. So it makes sense when things happen later on, if somebody's in danger or like somebody gets severely injured or something like that. It makes sense when you see them like all upset and, you know, just concerned about the other characters because they've been through so much along the way. They've actually talked and developed their relationship the entire time.
Emil! He's gone. His instincts have taken hold.
Weiss, you dumbass!
Kaine.
Start making sense, you rotten book, or you're gonna be sorry!
This is a somewhat open world game, but don't expect anything too crazy. There is some pretty interesting places that you can go, which I'll cover in more detail later, but there's not really a whole lot compared to like some of the modern games. Not really like a whole big ton of quests. There is like a lot of like side quests in terms of fetch quests and stuff like that. That's, I guess, kind of what they called side quests back then. It's a bunch of these fetch quests where you go from point A to point B and collect an item here and bring it here and nothing really in between. So there's plenty of that, but the inevitable main plot of the game is you're going around collecting these sealed verses that are gonna allow Grimoire Weiss the power to heal your sister Yona, who's suffering from the Black Scroll disease. It's basically a disease that's plaguing so much of humankind that they're facing extinction, and unfortunately Yona is next up on the list.
You've always been the one helping me. So I just wanted to...
Yona!
So you travel from town to town, talking to different people, collecting items, running errands, fighting shades along the way to collect the sealed verses, and watching all these emotional, over-the-top cutscenes that they did perform really well, to their credit, all while jamming to this incredible soundtrack. This soundtrack is good than a mother. So try not to cuss too much because YouTube like to block stuff and they don't promote as much when you cuss, so I'm not gonna do that as much. But there's just some really awesome soundtracks in this game. It's actually one of my favorite soundtracks. I got it on my phone that I listen to all the time, going from place to place. So you also visit these really awesome areas. Like, of course, there's like a desert area. There's like this seafront kind of like beach type town. There's this mysterious town where it seems like the people are almost like zombies. So you don't ever see them. You kind of go up to their doors and they just kind of talk shit to you, tell you to go away. And some people have these weird kind of creepy messages that they give. So a lot of stuff in this game almost gives you kind of like a horror vibe.
Go there.
Well, we're...
Be gone, strangers.
Wait, listen to...
Enough. Leave this village at once and never return.
There's even a haunted mansion in the game, so the creators were definitely into like horror elements, and in the haunted mansion, obviously, what you would expect to go on does go on, a bunch of creepy shit.
What's this? The picture has changed.
Get me out of here!
Hey, where'd Kaine go?
I knew this was a terrible idea. Haunted manors and the like. Oh, why does no one ever listen to me?
Trust me, there are a lot more areas, but there's not too many, so I don't want to get anybody super excited that they're gonna get like, or that I'm just scratching the surface or something like that, because even though there's a decent amount of variety, there's not a whole lot of different places. What they do is they kind of reuse the same places, and they do it quite a few times, but to their credit, again, it does work out pretty well. At least I didn't find myself getting too bored until you get kind of closer to the end. They do start padding things out a bit, but for the most part, they handled this part pretty good. The soundtrack is a little different in this version. So the music plays in certain areas and it doesn't play in other areas like it used to. So I don't know, some of the changes seem kind of weird, and it did throw me off a little bit, and it kind of took me out of the immersion a bit. I feel as though if this is the version I played first, then maybe that wouldn't be the case. However, like sometimes you can go into one area, the music plays, and then you leave and come back to that exact same area, and then the music plays and it sounds different. So it's not consistent, and I don't really understand why, or if there's something that I'm missing, but it just threw me off a little bit. Like most RPGs, there's combat in the game. It's revamped from the original, but it's still really fun. It kind of feels like they meant to like soften it up and kind of soften some of the blows and make it like a lot more smooth. But I kind of like it in the older games where you used to like hit an enemy and it used to have like this hard impact. I feel like the impact of the attacks has kind of been like toned down a bit. You know, maybe like even the sound effects kind of toned down a little bit. Something about it just seems different, because I feel like a lot of games are moving closer to being concerned about like immersion and things like that. And this is kind of like a very immersive game, but they kind of try to take it away from being like feeling like a game and just feeling more like this immersive experience. And I actually kind of like that more old school vibe. So I was a little disappointed even by something as simple as the combat and the sound effects for the combat being a little bit different. But regardless, the combat's still fun. I kind of feel like there wasn't really that much point to making the changes to the combat, because in my opinion, it doesn't really change it that much. It's not a drastic improvement. Pretty much just mash the button and nothing really crazy or unique happens when you're doing the combat. It's pretty much the same. There's no big additions, no combo system or anything. The only thing that I observed that I don't recall if you can do previously was press and hold the button to do these charge attacks, which are cool, but again, doesn't really add much value in my opinion, especially compared to games that have much more robust combat systems that are actually similar games in terms of gameplay style. There's actually two different versions of the combat. There's young Nier and there's adult Nier. As young Nier, you get access to your magic attacks and your short sword, which are interesting but get old kind of fast, and that's actually about a solid half of the game. So you're kind of handicapped a bit in terms of your combat options right from the beginning, which is kind of disappointing. And I honestly felt that way from the beginning of the original PS3 game as well. This one's no different. Now, when you become an adult, that's a whole nother story. You get access to your spear and you can stab the fuck out of everything with the spear, and you can also use the two-handed sword, which is great, but god dang, it takes so long to get a single swing off, unless that is you can like upgrade your weapons and stuff, and you can make it where you can swing it faster and all these different things. But man, like before you do that, it just takes forever and ever to be able to hit anything with this damn two-handed sword. It's just freaking nonsense. As I mentioned, there's a couple abilities that Grimoire Vice provides. They're like these magic spells, and most of them are pretty good. Some of them feel kind of useless, but it's another layer that you can use. And one of the greatest ones is like the Dark Execution. It's like this, all these freaking forts or whatever you want to call them, spikes just come out of the ground and stab the fuck out of everything. So that's pretty awesome. Definitely one of the most useful moves, but some of the other ones are just like, why did they even put this in? Even when you try to buff them and make them stronger, it's like you might as well just use your strongest moves all the time if they're gonna do it like that. And I do kind of wish that you had like a little bit more control over your other party members to try to add some variety there, but unfortunately you can't control them at all directly. The enemy types are mainly shades, which are the primary villains or enemies of this game, but there's a couple others. There's like some machines that you can fight and some wolves, but there's really not a whole lot of variety to see here. Now, some of the enemies do go a bit bonkers with some of their attacks though. Like they get you with these freaking crazy projectile showers. Oh God. Oh boy. Oh shoot. Okay. All right, you can stop that now. It's gonna stop soon, right? Stop shooting bullets! What? The sheer volume of projectiles that are shot at you here is just freaking ridiculous. Like, it's basically impossible to dodge. It's kind of funny because it's like some of the stuff you can easily dodge, but sometimes it just feels impossible. Even if the screen is totally full, there's been times when I just haven't got hit by anything and I've been barely trying to dodge, but other times there's like barely anything, but it's like the speed in which they send everything at you can just overwhelm you like in an instant. All right, so no running, dodging, or magic. Easy.
Gotcha, bitch!
Yo, the bosses in this game, no? Holy shit. They are so freaking ridiculous. These bosses are crazy as hell. Like this temple boss starts spinning around the room at you, and there's like these multi-phases of boss with giant landscapes and crazy robots, freaky baby dolls shooting a fuck ton of projectiles at you. Just all kinds of giant shades all over the place. Like, it gets pretty intense, and I'm not gonna expose everything to you in case you hadn't played the game, because this isn't a spoiler section. There's gonna be some spoilers later that I will warn you about prior to covering, but there's also even some extra stuff they threw in for the remaster, so they did add like extra content. I'm not going to tell you exactly what that is in case you don't know, but I will mention that there is some extra combat challenges as well. You'll see that for yourself, and those challenges are actually some of the best in the entire game, and that's awesome considering that it's a new edition. Unfortunately, there's not very much challenge to be had with this game. You pretty much can get through everything without doing any leveling up or really working too hard whatsoever to really beat anything, even on the hardest difficulty. Nier Automata on the normal difficulty was still much harder than this version, Nier Gestalt, on the hardest difficulty. So you might as well play it on hard, particularly if you're a challenge enthusiast like myself. There's a couple gameplay variances, like this overhead view during this one particular section, because why the hell not, I guess. There are some 2D sections, like 2D side-scroller section style, so that's pretty cool. There's these block pushing puzzles and these cart sections where you kind of have to ride on this cart that moves absurdly slow, and you have to shoot projectiles at all the enemies so that they don't basically destroy the cart while you're on it. So stuff like that. And there's the standard RPG stuff. You gain levels and collect items.
Medicinal herbs, 3 berries, and 3 royal ferns. Just remember, you may have to leave the village to find some of it.
You know, nothing too crazy. The exception being Grimoire Vice, who you can power up through words, as literally one of the collectibles is words to put in the book. And as you collect bigger words, that makes your weapons stronger and your magic stronger. The thing I enjoyed most about this game was definitely the story and the characters. It was really well voice acted. They got the same voice actors from before. I can't really tell. I don't think that it was like the same exact, I don't think they just took the same clips, because some of it felt like it was a different performance than it was previously. I don't know, maybe someone can correct me on that, but it definitely doesn't feel exactly the same, especially Yona. I would swear that actually was a totally different voice actor, because it doesn't sound the same at all to me. You know, maybe I'm imagining it, but I feel like I didn't play that game that long ago, and the voice actor who played Yona back then was a very specific voice actor that's like one of my favorites, whereas this sounded a little bit different and it didn't sound like the same person. But that aside, I really loved all the characters, and Yona's like this sweet and innocent girl. They make her like as innocent as humanly possible so that you just feel as though you just have to save her, and it's like gonna be the worst fate ever if you don't save Yona from this horrible illness, not to mention some worse things that happen and some trouble that she gets into later that you just definitely don't want to see her go down a dark fate. And you're also trying to figure out what the hell happened between the intro of the game and them jumping you forward like 1,300 years into the future, and you're still playing as like the same characters. Yona still got her illness, and you're still playing as Nier, and you don't really know why. You have to play the game to kind of figure it out. So you're really playing like this mystery. You're trying to figure out what the hell's going on, what happened to the world back then, and what's going on in the world today. Like, how did we get to this point? The technology that existed has kind of been wiped away, and now they're kind of back to pretty much cave man and woman times again. And there's a lot of stories like this, but I yet haven't got fatigued of this type of story. It's a good story and I liked it.
You're not gonna hate me because of this, are you?
What are you talking about?
It's just... I don't want you to hate me because of this terrible disease.
I'm gonna be covering some major spoilers here. You've been warned. Go ahead and skip ahead. There's gonna be a timestamp somewhere on the screen, so look for it. So while you're at it, in case you decide to click off the video at this point, go ahead and give the video a like and subscribe if you hadn't. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about spoilers now. Let's go. When you first play this game, you get to this point where there's like this giant, humongous shade attacking, the biggest that you've ever seen up to this point, and you directly tell Devila to go and help Yona. Now, this was a big red flag for me, because she says, okay, I'm on my way. I go, I'm holding off this giant shade. Devila's going towards where Yona is. Eventually the shade kind of catches up and goes up close to where Yona is at, and then you find out like the Shadow Lord has Yona. Devila's like, they don't show her in the scene, but she's just there later as if nothing happened, and they just kind of never talk about it. And I'm like, how the fuck did the Shadow Lord get past you? You telling me you didn't like try a little bit to not let him get past? You know, they never talk about that. And I'm like, no, that's suspicious as hell. Like, something's going on, because they put so much emphasis on these two sisters, and they try to get you like involved in their character and like just, you know, just being involved with them, period. Of course, later on you discover that they betrayed you and they're working with the Shadow Lord the entire time, and all of a sudden they're all mean and shit, and you know, they're telling you, well, I guess it's too bad now, we're gonna have to finish you, and you know, this is for the good of humanity, you're not even a human being, ha ha ha, and all this ridiculous shit. And it's just kind of crazy, because it's like they were so nice and caring, and they even have this part where they play their ballad together. Devila and Popola, they're playing their music together. It's all methodical, you know. It literally seems like something that could fucking put you to sleep because it's like such good music when they're like singing and stuff. And it's kind of like really calming after you went through all of this drama. Every time you can always come back to the same place and at least hear Devila playing her music and stuff. But then they like transform into just such cruel and nasty people, and of course you have to fight them to the death.
Devila, what's happening?
Sorry, but this fate was predetermined. Still, we spoke to truth. We really wanted to avoid this if possible. We were hoping to put it off for 100 years or so, until the next generation came along.
What are you talking about?
Are they shades?
I don't think so.
It's a lie. I don't believe it.
You inevitably strike them down, and then one of the sisters goes apeshit because she's upset that her sister died, which kind of doesn't make any sense because they're just going on about how none of them are human and all this other stuff, but then they start getting all emotional when something happens. So it's like, well, aren't you literally contradicting yourself? But, you know, that's the nature of some mammals sometimes. So all of this goes down. Emil, he has to step in and stop him, and he pretty much destroys himself trying to stop him. Now, again, for anyone who played Automata, you know that perhaps Emil's not dead, but you don't really get the full story behind that anyway, either way. So that doesn't matter that much. But I remember when I saw this, it was a very emotional scene, and it almost actually brought me to tears just because of how sad it was, especially when you see Kaine get like really upset about Emil making that sacrifice. You never really saw Kaine show much emotion besides anger up to this point, but seeing her like get that upset and saddened at the loss of a character really shows how their relationships developed throughout the game and really provides payoff for all that banter and all that stuff that you experienced throughout the entire story.
Oh dear. Kaine's so unstable, and Vice can't stop arguing with people. I hope they can hold it together once I'm gone.
You beat the Shadow Lord in the end, of course. Easy as fuck boss battle, by the way. And he's really just Nier himself, trying to save his sister, who are the actual humans, and you're like the replicant trying to save like your replicant sister. So it's kind of like y'all's stories are the same, with the exception being that the humans are kind of like the bad guys because they created you to save themselves, but they don't care about whether or not any type of actual spirit or consciousness is developed within you. They're just like, whatever, this is a body for me to use, right? So it's kind of one of those things where you really don't know whose side to pick, because on one hand that would be a viable solution assuming such technology would be possible, but on the other hand it kind of sucks to create something with a consciousness and then just kind of overwrite the consciousness with your own. It's kind of messed up, and you're definitely teetering on the edge of your moral code if you even think of something like that. Let's talk about a couple things that could definitely be better. Some negatives. The combat in this version and the previous version, they're similar enough to where I can say that there's not really that much to it. There's very little depth besides the boss battles, which could be good essentially regardless of the combat if you make the bosses interesting, which they did. Really, the combat isn't all that great regardless of the fact you can use a couple weapons and the different magic attacks and stuff. So it's kind of fun, but just compared to some other things that exist, even in this game's own sequel, Nier Automata, you know, it's really nothing compared to that. Like, combat in that game is like on a whole another level compared to this. So that's one issue. The graphics, I really can barely notice any improvements with the exceptions of like the main characters. It does seem as though they touched up the main characters pretty nicely when it comes to like the overall like landscapes and stuff like that, or even like the shades and stuff. I really can't even notice a difference. Maybe it's just me not looking closely enough, but I don't think I should have to. It certainly isn't like next gen quality of a remaster or anything. You know, maybe I'm expecting too much. I don't really feel like I expected a lot, but I did expect it to be a little bit more of a difference, or for me to be able to notice. And I can't really notice a change in the graphics hardly at all, except for the characters. There's the main character, the boy. He's not as interesting as the old man. It just is what it is. He's not as interesting to me as the dad. This story with the dad trying to save his daughter, to me, is more compelling than a brother trying to save his sister. So I don't even know why they did two of the stories, but I like the story with the dad trying to save his daughter much, much more. The enemy variety in the game is pretty bare bones. There's not really a whole lot of enemies. Now, I will say on Automata, there was more enemies, but I feel like they were like more similar enemies. they were like kind of all, or not all, but a lot of them were the same. In this game, they're different. They kind of function different and do different things. You know, you got your machines, your shades, you got your wolves and stuff, the boar that you have to fight on the field and stuff like that. So there's that, but there's not really a whole lot of variety in terms of enemies overall. They definitely could have more. The fetch quests are boring as hell. There's no point in doing any of the fetch quests. Just don't waste your time with any of that. Even on the hardest difficulty, you can still get past everything without really doing any of the quests and getting all the best weapons and all that stuff. That's just kind of if you just really enjoy the game and like listening to the music, then you do all that stuff. There's also these text sections, which I didn't even talk about, but to be honest with you, it's because I kind of tried to forget them or just ignore them, because some people may really love them, but I really don't care for them much. There's these sections where you essentially just literally read text. It's almost like reading like a book, but unfortunately it's not like a very interesting book. It's kind of like a somewhat boring book, with the exception of some stuff related to one of your main characters, Kaine. The other stuff that you cover is like very boring, like very kind of rhetorical, you know, some good examples of different morals of stories, and there's even some riddles and stuff like that that you have to solve in these text cases. But overall, I found them to be pretty boring. So I'm kind of annoyed that some of them were mandatory. You had to complete them, and I don't think that any of them should have been mandatory. But of course, since in the original they probably didn't want to change any of that. So respect for that. But in the original, I didn't really enjoy those parts and kind of just look forward to them being over. And same thing here. I just wish there was a faster way to make the text go by or something, so I could pretty much just skip it all. And anytime I need to answer a question or something, then I can just answer the question. But instead, you kind of have to wait until you get to the end of the text, and that kind of annoyed me. So there's some things about it that do definitely take away from the experience and lower the overall value for the game for me.
Are you kidding me? You can't be serious.
All right, let's move on to my final thoughts. I thought this game was great. I really liked the game, but there is some flaws to the game, unfortunately. It is what it is, so I like it, but I can definitely admit that I like my crucial old dude better. His voice actor for the English version was incredible. So Yona's voice actor was incredible too in the original. This one's definitely different. Can't put my finger on it. I didn't look it up, so I will look it up probably after I'm filming, or maybe someone wants to correct me, feel free to do that. But also, like, the side quests, trash, and all of the text and stuff, boring. The combat is like only like decent combat. It's not that great. It's certainly not bad, but there's nothing that's that great about it. Not a whole lot of enemy variety and stuff. The bosses are definitely awesome for the most part, but some of those are even kind of clunky, you know, so it feels like the budget wasn't there. They didn't have time to like fully polish when they made the original or something. So they had a lot of great ideas, and it seemed like by the time they got to Automata, they got the budget they needed, they got the time they needed, and they really kind of blew it out of the water. Now, I do think that the soundtrack in this game is amazing, and I do enjoy like the story, the characters, the soundtrack. So those things, incredible. But other stuff like overall gameplay, all the quests, and you know, just like some of the side quests and some of the gameplay elements are just kind of lacking. So I give it like a 7 out of 10. Not a bad score, pretty good. I think overall most people will enjoy it. However, it's certainly not for everyone. If you haven't played the game, you missed out on it. This is definitely a game for you because it's good. It's not bad, it's definitely good, but if you go into this and you're expecting anything like modern and anything that's like gonna blow you away in any area besides like really soundtrack, then you might as well just look elsewhere. So that's my review, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Be sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I'm a passionate gamer. I love gaming, so I want to do more gaming content for sure. So I'm considering different options on how I can increase the amount of gaming content that I can do for you all viewers and increase my viewership, subscribers, all that awesome shit. Anyway, y'all, appreciate y'all hearing me out, checking the video out. Hope you enjoyed. Catch y'all next time. Peace.